The next thing I want to touch on is the economic way of thinking. I want to lay out a few assumptions that we make in introductory economics. These assumptions apply to all the models that we will see in the rest of this course. For every choice that we make, we face a trade-off. Scarcity is the reason that we have to make choices in the first place. If scarcity was not an issue, we would be able to do everything that we wanted. In economics, we assume that people make rational choices. This means that before making any decision, a person will compare the costs and the benefits associated and pick the option that brings the greatest net benefit to them. I know in the real world that is not always the case, but for simplicity's sake, we will assume that it is. I talked about comparing costs and benefits, but it's very important to understand exactly what costs and benefits are. Costs are quite intuitive. They signify something that we need to give up in order to get something. Benefits, on the other hand, represent the gain or the pleasure that something brings from consuming it. The benefit derived from consuming a good varies from person to person. It depends on individual preferences. So the benefit attained by one individual from consuming a good could be different from another person. Economists measure benefit by the maximum value, whether it be in terms of monetary or other goods, that a person is willing to give up in order to gain something else. In the last slide, I mentioned this idea of every choice being a trade-off. I'll formally introduce the concept. This reality that all choices pose a trade-off is known as opportunity cost. By definition, the opportunity cost of consuming something is the highest valued alternative that must be foregone to attain it. Let's say that I have $10 and I can spend it on either food or a movie. If I go to see the movie, the opportunity cost is the food that I could have eaten. Opportunity cost arises because of the problem of scarcity. If scarcity weren't an issue, then neither the movie nor the food would have had an opportunity cost. Economists also assume that people choose at the margin. This means that people compare the benefit of consuming a little more of a good with the cost of consuming a little more of that good. The marginal benefit is known as the benefit derived from an increase in the consumption of one more unit of a good, and the marginal cost is known as the opportunity cost of consuming one additional unit of a good. Economists take human nature as given. We view people as acting in their own self-interest in order to gain the most benefit for themselves. As I mentioned before, how much benefit someone gains depends on their own preferences. But in general, people will try to maximize their benefit regardless of their preferences. The whole point of economics, or at least microeconomics, is to predict the self-interested choices that people make by looking at the incentives they face. We can do this because we assume that people undertake activities in which the marginal benefit exceeds the marginal cost. This means that the additional benefit derived from consuming an additional unit of a good is more than the opportunity cost of consuming an additional unit of that same good.